I'm Melissa Noriega. As Representative King referenced, I had the opportunity to serve for my husband sort of as a Cinderella state representative in 2005. And one of the big issues that we discussed was the whole issue of community Wi-Fi and whether or not we were going to have some kind of free network or municipal Wi-Fi that government provided. And the conversation was really about whether it was fair to use tax dollars that companies had paid to the government to create competition. And I think it was a valid conversation. And I think that Representative King would find that we were actually more closely aligned on this than he might believe, because my concern, which I came to from a completely different direction, wasn't whether or not we had competition. My concern was that there was a whole chunk of folks that weren't in the game. I spent 27 years working for the school district, and after I got married and tried to start a family, I was a staffer for several of the superintendents, and I asked if they would put me somewhere in the middle. And they put me in parent involvement, community engagement, which is one of those jobs where you can go home at 5 o'clock. And what I discovered was that we were putting a lot of resources into working in the community, buying things like tote bags and booklets and that kind of thing. But there were some people 10 and 12 years ago that were teaching parents of students at HISD how to use computers. And I will never forget walking into Jane Long Middle School. They have an enormous computer lab there. I don't know what the room used to be. It may have been some kind of vocational lab. But I walked in, and there were 140 parents from El Salvador on the computer, and I watched them as the instructor showed them how to get on the internet, and they pulled up the newspaper from their home city, the capital city of their home country, the day that it was published, and you could see the hair go up on the back of their neck. It was one of the most powerful experiences that I've ever had, because as a school district person, as any kind of government public service person, you're always really trying to figure out how to change the game. How are you going to change the game and really make progress and make something happen with folks that are needing different kinds of resources? Well, out of that, I began to work with Title I money and money that was available through the school district to try to provide training for parents in using the computer. I had a chance to work with Nicole Robinson, who I think y'all are going to hear from later, who now works for the City of Houston. And we had classes. We would do 6-week classes. We would sign up parents, and they would come and they would learn computers skills, and they would learn how to buy a computer and things to do, and I watched it make a huge difference. Well, my husband, State Representative Rick Noriega, was deployed to Afghanistan, and I got to go to Austin and stand in for him, and it was pretty intimidating. I need to tell you, I was terrified for about 6 weeks. And I thought, what do I have to bring to the table? Well, one of the very first issues that we began to talk about was whether or not folks like the people that I had worked with, were they going to be able to access municipal Wi-Fi free? And it really occurred to me that you can't compete till you can play. And so many of these families started out working with the school, working with some kind of group like Technology for All. And what would happen is, don't you think most people have a list? You know, you've got a car on it, you've got a college education, you've got a phone. You don't even know what kind of list you have till your kids start to grow up and leave the house, and you know there's a list. You know, a computer, a VCR, whatever it is. And what happens when people get it, like that group at Jane Long, is that computer goes from being here on the list to being here. And what happens is that people want a better connection. They want more software. And what you really do is create customers. If you can get people in the game. Some of you may not remember when you started with a computer, but I remember I worked for Kay Stripling, and she made all of her oldies like me who were not automatically bilingual in computers. We would go to her office to tell her something, she'd go talk to the hand. Go to your computer and email me so you learn how to do it. And we'd go, but she'd go, go. And so we would go and we would pick out our little, email. But after 6 months, 3 months, a year, whatever it took you, you were over that hump, but you had to have your own. You know, it really isn't adequate to go to a library or to your kid's school and use the tech lab. You have to have your own. And so you've got to get that on your list and move it up. So to me, it was clear that you needed a beginning place if you were in a situation where this was not part of the normal way of doing business. Most people started using a computer at their office. What if you clean houses for a living? You know, what if you empty trash cans, or you clean office buildings, or you work for Public Works on the back of a truck? So these folks needed to get in the game. And to me, it was clear that the kind of activities that Technology for All did in the East End were getting people in the game. And what happened after that was that they became customers of broadband, DSL. When my husband and I got our DSL, no one had it in our neighborhood, and they had to run the lines. And, you know, we learned. I live very close to where he was describing. Mr. Knightley was talking about the Casa Boom Y and, you know, the Pecan Park area. That's where I live. And we didn't have any of that. We didn't have DSL. We didn't have the kinds of opportunities that folks have at their offices. And so it was clear to me that there was a band of folks that had to start somewhere.